Kate continues her early childhood mission as Meghan and Harry remain shocked over the reaction to their alleged car chase.
There is a lack of awareness in their public image, and I say that because this is now the biggest story.
Plus, a royal expert claims that Prince Harry has woken up to the truth about Meghan Markle as Nima Rahmani breaks down why he lost his protection bid.
You can't say, well, I see police at a football game or a concert, and therefore I'm entitled to the same protection. Yeah. Again, that's for a public safety reason, not your own private tour of London.
Plus, Rosie Hart, author of The Royal Wardrobe, takes a look back at some of the most powerful and most cursed royal fashion moments.
When they were going through the wreckage, they found perfectly unharmed in amongst all of this metal and the fire was the strawberry leaf tiara. And it was perfectly unharmed. And that's where the idea of the curse really comes from. And it has not been worn since. It's sat in a vault and nobody wants to go near it.
We've got that plus so much more in today's Royally Us. Hey everyone, welcome to Royally Us. I'm Christina, that's Christine, and not a ton of big royal news this week, but we have a really fun chat with Rosie, who's going to take a deep dive into some royal fashion moments in history, and so she has some really great stories, but we definitely have a jam-packed show for you guys.
Even when the royal news is quiet, there's always something to talk about.
Always, and we know every week gets you guys talking, so kicking off, LJ says they left the royal family, talking about Harry and Meghan, and the UK to have a private life. They can't expect the UK taxpayers to pay for their security. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people didn't want to pay the bill. Harry wanted to pay the bill. Nima Rahmani is going to break it down why they decided to deny him his ask. So we'll get into that in a little bit. Nano says one thing that Princess Catherine can't do is horses. LOL, she says that she's allergic to them, but I suspect she's afraid of them. A lot of people who are afraid of horses say they are allergic. Yeah, we were talking last week. They're like, there's just nothing that she can't do, but I guess horses is one of them.
I'm going to start telling people I'm allergic to spiders.
Right. Totally. And then Christine says her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth deserved every penny that was spent on her funeral. Her loyal subjects in Britain and the Commonwealth countries, such as Canada, where I reside, would insist that she was deserving of the honor bestowed on her. She was one of the greatest women this world has ever seen. Her son, King Charles, and grandson, Prince William, will work extremely hard to continue with her service to the people. Definitely worth every penny.
It is such a lovely sentiment and a lovely message.
Definitely. All right, let's get into the news of the week. And Prince William visited the Queen's Park Rangers football stadium in London to learn more about how the soccer club has supported the community since the devastating Grenfell fire. Of course, in almost 6 years ago, a fire tragically tore through the 24-story Grenfell Tower, apartment building in West London and killed 72 people. It was the deadliest residential fire in Great Britain since World War II. So the soccer stadium is less than a mile and a half from where the tower once stood, and the Queen Park Rangers team's charitable arm in the community trust has provided support for those that have been affected from the fire over the years. Prince William met with charity CEO and retired soccer star to hear how the trust has responded immediately after the fire. I can't believe that it's been 6 years and this was even over here, this was big news. So it's absolutely devastating.
This was such a huge tragedy for the people of London, just for the England, for the UK. It really, really felt very close to home because there are tower apartment buildings like this all over the UK, and it could have happened to so many of us. But what I think has been really special is that the royal family has continued to support rehabilitation projects and trusts that support the victims of this fire. Right. Queen Elizabeth II visited with the victims. William and Kate visited with Harry and Meghan visited with the victims. Meghan even worked quite closely with some of the community support during right after the fire. Sure. And so seeing that the Prince of Wales is still there supporting this trust, supporting these victims, even though it's 6 years later, shows how important it is to the royal family.
Oh, definitely. It's got to mean, and I'm sure to the people, it means a lot as well. Well, while Prince William was busy in Grenfell, Kate Middleton has been working hard for her early childhood work, as we know that this is a huge initiative for her. She stepped out in London last week to highlight the importance of relationships in early childhood. She was at the Foundling Museum, which tells the story of the 18th century Foundling Hospital, the UK's first children's charity. It was initially established back in 1739 as a home for children at risk of abandonment. So she has served as a patron of this since 2019. She then met with adoptive and foster parents to learn more about their experiences. And she spoke to a small group about the importance of love and support for all children and how positive relationships can have a lifelong impact. We talked about this so many times. I just love this, as both of us being moms to young kids. It means so much, those first, 5 formative years. And I love that this is her passion project.
I know this is one of our favorite projects, I think, of any of the royals, because we relate to it. But this event particularly highlighted relationships that aren't maybe your birth parents. And specifically, one of the conversations that I really loved was with kinship carers. And those are people who are maybe your family or very, very close friends who are not your parents, but are caring for a child. And Professor Green, who's very famous in the UK, met with the Princess of Wales with his grandmother who raised him. I read that she bought a special blouse just for the occasion, which I think just shows how special these meetings are with members of the royal family. It really can boost morale, but really highlight the special care that someone's made in a child, now grown child's life. But it raised awareness for those sorts of positive relationships, because not all families are a mom and a dad and 2.5 kids. Sometimes it is grandma or a sister or a cousin or an aunt or an uncle or a foster parent. It all looks so different, and all those people still need support.
100%. Everybody needs support. All caregivers that come in all different shapes and sizes, they all need support. All right. Well, the King and Queen stepped out in Belfast for their historic first visit to Northern Ireland since the coronation. It is also the King and Queen's first official visit outside of England since the coronation. They were all smiles as they arrived in Hazelbank Park in Newton Abbey to open the Coronation Garden. So this was obviously created to celebrate the crowning and mark the start of a new green initiative to the community. They had the honor of opening up the gates and met designers behind the new space, landscapes with the same sustainable principles that the King and Queen are so passionate about. So everybody is out and about, getting back to business.
Yeah, this was so great to see. It was sort of part of the RHS's Chelsea Flower Show, sort of extended up to Northern Ireland. It's part of this big gardening project tied with a lot of the causes that are important to them, sustainability, maintaining the countryside. But I think it's so important that Northern Ireland was their first stop, their first post-coronation visit outside of England, just to maintain that relationship, make sure that Northern Ireland knows that they're so special to the monarchy and to the United Kingdom as a whole. And it's a good example of that soft diplomacy power that the King and Queen can perform.
Definitely. All right, let's spill some royal tea. And Mike Tindall was honored, obviously, to attend the coronation with his wife, Zara Tindall, but he had a major complaint about the coronation. He said on his podcast, "You're in the hottest spot, but it was all happening just around the corner of a wall that you can't see." So I guess he was blocked during the event. He explained that while he was still seated fairly close to the King and Queen, the only way that he could actually see it was on a screen. He said it was unbelievable to be sat where we were, quite frustrating that you couldn't see around the corner, but you had the TV there. I love that the TVs were inside there. I would have never known, but I guess it's such a big place that there's so many different, areas of it that I guess they had to put the screen on. He noted that everything went on sort of back and front, and he was thankful to have the privilege of watching history unfold. But pretty interesting that they have like the TV screens, because I guess, not everybody could see.
It is funny that they watched it on TV just like we did, although slightly different. They weren't on their sofa. Right. I think that also the cameramen are really crafty. It's sort of not showing these sort of, less than charming things, the TVs, the wires, the microphones, that doesn't take away from the magic that we're watching at home on our sofa.
Totally. All right. Well, we talked so much about it last week, this alleged car chase between, Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and the photographers. Well, we got reporting that they are shocked by the response to the frightening car chase. A source told Us Weekly that they insist that their account of the car chase was absolutely not exaggerated, and for the people to say otherwise is hurtful and out of line. Their rep also released a statement that was similar to that as well, saying, they did not elaborate this, they did not exaggerate this, and pretty much a source adds to us that they refuse to be silenced. They say, as far as staying out of sight and being scared to show their faces, that's not going to happen. This is just strengthen their resolve to keep standing up for themselves and speaking out when they feel wronged. Like we said, that they were, in an alleged car chase after attending an award ceremony with her mother. So, only time will tell. People had a lot of opinions on this one, though.
What a surprise.
Right. What a surprise.
I think that this is probably one of the biggest Duke and Duchess of Sussex stories that we're going to see this year, because it just will not die. Neither party, the people who are supportive, the people who are detractors, no one will let it go. And even the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are so keen to make it clear that they are telling their own version of the truth and their story. To me, this shows that, there is a lack of awareness in their public image. And I say that because this is now the biggest story. And this is going to remain the biggest story about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex until they until they change the narrative. And I can't, they've done good work. We've heard about a couple of great projects. Meghan's worked with baby banks, and there's been all these really impressive awards, but no one's talking about those. We're talking about this continued argument with the press, this car chase from the paparazzi, and it still is, the only thing that manages to make everyone talk about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex is something that's drama, not important, empowering work.
You're so right. Everything that has to do with them now that's going to make a headline is a negative story. And that's, how they kind of spun it, I guess. I mean, even with his book, every headline that we ran, everything that was was negative. So, I mean, that's what people are interested in. They want the drama. They associate Prince Harry and Meghan Markle with the drama. And that's the only way that people are going to be invested in their story, which is sad because, like you said, they are doing the good work, but nobody's talking about it.
Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, especially in this case, I don't doubt that their experience was very, very frightening and made them very upset. But I think that their choice to release the statement really just erased all of the hard work that they did. And their only choice in the situation that they've built for themselves is to have not said anything and just, it's that keep calm and carry on concept, where if you keep doing the good work and keep putting the good work out there, that's what people will start to notice, not the fights with the press and the paparazzi and the statements and the corrections, and then no, this is my inside source, this is my inside source. All of that is just detracting from the work they're trying to do.
Yeah, it is interesting. I wonder why they decided to come public, go forward with this story to begin with. I mean, they were the ones that alerted the press that this happened. They said they were in this near catastrophic car chase. I don't know. Yes, I'm sure it was frightening given what he went through with his mother. It had to be an extremely uncomfortable, scary situation. But I don't know. Now you're just drawing more attention to yourselves. And I don't know if you were trying to, I don't want to say gain sympathy, because obviously if this was a near catastrophic car chase, then by all means, that's devastating and scary. But I'm just wondering why they wanted to go public with this.
Yes. And it's such a different decision to go public with this statement versus sending out one of their very familiar legal letters to Backgrid or to the photographers, or enlisting more support and more help either from the NYPD or from a different security team. Going public with it was just telling everybody what happened. It didn't actually make for any change. It's not pushing that initiative forward that Prince Harry so keen to work on, which is, press reform. It's not doing that. It's actually doing the opposite. The press is now tearing them apart for it. I think it was misguided. I think someone's giving them really bad advice, but I'm pretty sure I've said that a few times.
Yeah, no, it really seems like it. It definitely does. Well, this was interesting. So Paul Burrell, who worked for Princess Diana for over 10 years until her death in 1997, he has claimed that Prince Harry is only staying in his marriage so that he can see his two children grow up. I don't know about this one, but he told GB News, am I the only person in the UK that is thinking, has Harry finally woken up to the truth? Has he finally seen the truth of what his wife is doing and that he's been brainwashed and mesmerized by her beauty or something? Because we all know that, but he doesn't seem to see it. He thinks that Harry is eventually going to return home, saying, I have no doubt that when this happens, because we all know that it will happen, when it does happen, that he will return to the United Kingdom, and I think his father, the king, and his brother, the Prince of Wales, will both greet him back into the country with open arms. There's an element of Harry we all love. We just don't understand why he's doing what he's doing at the moment. Pretty strong statement to say about somebody's marriage and, just that he's staying there. I don't really believe this, but, kind of a strong thing to say as somebody who worked so closely with Princess Diana.
this was a really interesting statement because it actually echoes so much of what I've heard throughout the UK. And we talk a lot about how Harry and Meghan are not well liked in the UK.
Yeah.
This is what people think about them. But if you'll notice what he's saying, he is completely vilifying Meghan in this. Harry's innocent. If he comes back, we'll welcome him with open arms. Meghan's the big bad witch who needs to stay in LA, and she's not. They are a partnership. They are a team. Meghan and Harry are clearly working together. Harry's the one who wrote that book.
Right,
Harry's the one who put all those stories out there. And I really, I would love to see this narrative change because we've seen nothing but teamwork and support from the two of them. They've talked endlessly about how they are, there for each other, supportive of each other. They're a team. And so vilifying Meghan and making her the big baddie just doesn't match up to what they're saying and what they're doing.
No, yeah. It's not like she put him under the spell and was like, you are going to leave your family and come. No, he has said it multiple times. Like, this wasn't the life that he wanted to have anymore. And maybe she just gave him that extra confidence and that boost to go. And, and they, what? If they're happy, they're happy. Let them live and do their thing. But yes, they are making some questionable choices along the way. But, as long as they're happy in their life, I don't think that, like you said, we don't need to vilify Meghan in this situation. It takes two to tango. Well, as we know, Prince Harry did lose his bid for police protection while he is in the UK. So what does all of this mean? Will Backred have to hand over those photos, like we said before, of the car chase? Our legal expert and president and CEO of West Coast Trial Lawyers, Nima Rahmani, is breaking it all down. Take a look. First, going back to the security, are you surprised that he lost this bid?
I'm not surprised, Christina. There's a lot of demands here by, Harry and Meghan. I mean, you're no longer, at least a prince, acting in this capacity here. So, we talked about the law enforcement protection, police officers. Again, that's not something that you're entitled to as a private person. You can't say, well, I see police at a football game or a concert, and therefore I'm entitled to the same protection. Yeah. Again, that's for a public safety reason, not your own private tour of London. Right. And with respect to, photographs and video, you can't just demand something. Now, of course, you file a lawsuit, you may be able to subpoena video documents, those types of things. But again, you are just an ordinary person living in Montecito with your wife. You can't make these demands. Maybe you got to start realizing, hey, now that you're in the United States, you need to start acting like a normal, albeit very wealthy person, but you're no longer a member of the British royalty.
No, definitely. So what are his options when he does go to the UK? I mean, he can hire his own private security, but again, I guess when you're in London, they don't have the same intelligence as the British police would have.
Of course. And you see this with celebrities all the time, right? When the Kardashians are traveling, they have a small army of private security guards. They don't have uniformed police officers and, private security. Some of them are former law enforcement. Some of them are former military. They can be very good. You can hire your own team. You can pay them whatever you want, but you can't make demands on public law enforcement officials.
Right. And now they are trying to make public demands on Backred, which is the photo agency, saying, you have to hand all this stuff over, which they've released a scathing response towards Prince Harry. But what was your reaction to that? And they really can't do that, right?
No, they can't. There's no legal justification whatsoever. I mean, they really come across as they're not children, but really spoiled adults who are making demands that have no legal justification whatsoever. You can't do that. Again, if you're involved in a lawsuit, if you're law enforcement, you execute a search warrant, there's certain ways you can get things through the legal process, but you can't just make a demand and expect people to bend over backwards for you.
Right. When can Backred be forced to hand over any information? If they ever, if somebody got hurt or something like that, if Harry and Meghan end up suing them, would they be forced to hand this over as evidence?
Yeah, potentially, yes. There has to be some sort of legal case, right? It can be a civil one, it can be a lawsuit, or it can be a criminal case. Under those circumstances, lawyers, not Prince Harry and Meghan, the lawyers, they would subpoena the documents, or if it's a criminal case, law enforcement can execute a search warrant in connection with prosecutors. But, an ordinary civilian, a non-lawyer can't make these demands. If there's some sort of case, yes, you can potentially get the information, but absent that, you cannot.
Right. Are you surprised that a lawyer is advising them to release statements like this? Because it seems, like you said, kind of silly that they would know that this is not how the law works.
Yeah, well, we saw this last week. Sometimes even my own clients make statements without talking to their lawyer. So, maybe the prince and his wife should get some legal advice before, issuing these types of statements. And sometimes, and we've seen it before, I mean, we've talked about different cases here, like when we're talking about Alec Baldwin, sometimes you have the PR team that isn't really communicating with the legal team, right? So sometimes the PR folks put out statements for public relations reasons, but they don't necessarily pass legal muster. That may be what is happening here.
Yeah, so I really wonder if he's going, there's really no reason for him to go back to the UK anytime soon anyway, maybe for some legal issues. But I wonder if Meghan, Lilibet, and Archie will ever step foot, back there.
I think that's everyone's question. And I would say, no, I don't think it'll ever happen. And then it will. And I'm proven wrong. I don't know what these guys are doing anymore.
No, your guess is as good as mine. All right,
yes,
let's switch gears. Yeah, let's switch gears. Let's talk some fashion. I feel like we haven't talked fashion in a while. So to help us break down the royal rules is author of The Royal Wardrobe, TikTok star at The Royal Wardrobe, Rosie Hart. Fun conversation. Take a look. Well, Rosie, congratulations on your book, on all of your success on TikTok and everything like that. I absolutely love your videos. I feel like I learned so much when I watched them as well. We'll get into the book in the beginning in just a second. But when did you first fall in love with royal fashion?
Well, I've always loved history and I've always loved fashion. And so when I sort of started off down this path of looking into history, researching history, one of my main drives was to try and find a way to connect with the people that I was learning about. And one of the ways that really resonated with me to do that was to look into the clothes that they were wearing, because it's one of these incredible moments of connection that we often don't get with people from the past or people who live very detached lives from us, like the royals. It's something we've done all throughout history. Absolutely everyone gets dressed in the morning and decides what they're going to put on their body. And there are all sorts of processes that go into deciding what we're going to wear. And it's the same for royals as it is for anyone else in the world. So if we can begin to untangle that process and look at the messages there, we can learn an awful lot about these people. And so that's where I jumped in. And that's why I sort of touched onto that, because it made these grand historical characters feel a lot more real. And it's helped me to understand a lot more about how the royals today view their role in the world and how to learn about the sort of messages that they're sending to people.
Clothes can tell a story and we just need to know how to read them. It's kind of like you're saying that they can sort of hide these symbols in what they're wearing. We just have to decode it almost. What would you say, what are the most powerful stories that we've seen told by royals through fashion?
Well, there have just been so many, but in recent times, the first one that comes to mind is when Princess Diana left the royal family or officially backed away from being a working royal. She adopted an incredible transformation in that time, where she made a really clear point of shedding all of the sort of royal rules of dressing that we have become accustomed to make it very, very clear to people that this was a new period in her life, and she wanted to be viewed differently and as an independent figure and not as part of the wider institution. So she began to wear more foreign designers. Her hemlines got shorter. She allowed herself to wear heels. So that's a modern example of sending messages. But probably one of the most intricate ways of sending a narrative was with Elizabeth I. So she was this incredible Tudor queen who had a very, very long reign and a very difficult reign. She was up against a lot of challenges from people who didn't believe that a woman had the strength, physically and mentally, to be able to rule a whole country. So she used her clothes to reinforce her belief that she was the right woman for the job. And in this one incredible portrait, the rainbow portrait that comes from right at the end of her reign, she has filled it completely, the clothes that she's wearing, with messages. She has this beautiful jeweled snake embroidered onto the sleeve of her dress, which was a popular symbol for wisdom. On its head, she has a small gold armillary sphere, which was a sort of globe used to chart the heavens and the stars and was a popular symbol for representing God and the divine. So she was sending a message that she was this powerful religious leader as well, who was always going to rule with God at the front of her vision. And she's also wearing this glorious gold cape that's covered in eyes and ears, which is very, very sort of modern surrealist and looks like something out of a Schiaparelli collection. But it was used to symbolize that she, as the monarch, could see and hear everything that was happening in her kingdom. So any traitors who were plotting to have her overthrown or undermine her authority, they should watch out, because she knows what's happening.
I love that. I think that's so fantastic. But moving up to modern times, while Kate probably isn't embroidering any snakes on her sleeves, which we would love if she did, let's talk a little bit about the Kate effect and, everything that she wore for. So even now, sells out immediately. But how would you describe her style? I think in the book you said that she represents a bit more tradition, a little bit more a traditional look, right?
Yes, I discussed this concept where Kate has to sort of juggle these two very, very different roles as a member of the royal family. There's the Princess of Wales, or the Duchess of Cambridge, as she was known for a very long time, who represents tradition. And she sort of exists in this world that's completely detached from everyone else's experiences. It's so unrelatable. But then on the other hand, you have Kate Middleton, who's the sort of breath of fresh air in the royal family. She's one of us. She's not plucked from some aristocratic background. And so throughout her time as a working royal, she's had to juggle these two roles, because while we love to see her in these glorious, beautiful dresses and, very formal occasions, it's when we see her at her most relatable that we, as a population, as royal watchers, are most interested in her, because it sort of like brings us closer to the royal family.
I read that there is a cursed royal tiara. Can you tell us more about this cursed royal tiara, and has it been worn recently ever again? I mean, tell us about it.
Yes. So there are quite a few cursed gems in the royal collection, but the cursed tiara actually doesn't belong to the royals anymore, but it was made by Prince Albert. He designed lots of tiaras himself. He played a big role in the sort of creation of tiaras as we know them. He created this tiara, and he was the husband of Queen Victoria. So he created this tiara for one of their daughters, and it's called the Hesse strawberry leaf tiara. And it was supposed to be a gift on her wedding day from her loving father, but unfortunately he passed away. He was very, very sick, fell ill just before the wedding, and died before the big day. So already there was this horribly sad undertone to the day and the tiara. So the daughter, Princess Alice, took this tiara and off she went, off to Germany to live with her new husband. And she herself would die 17 years later, to the day that her father passed away, also of a very tragic illness. But some of her children would pass away, and some of her grandchildren would pass away. And that's where the sort of curse idea comes from. But the really spooky part of the story was one of Alice's grandsons. He ended up with the tiara and gave it to his wife, Princess Cecily, who was actually the sister of the late Prince Philip. So lots of British royal ties there. And they were actually travelling to the UK to attend a royal wedding in the 1930s when their plane crashed. And both of those royals, their children, the pilots, their nannies, all of their servants that they had with them, everybody died in this crash. It was horrendously tragic for the Hesse royal family. But when they were going through the wreckage, they found perfectly unharmed in amongst all of this metal and the fire was the strawberry leaf tiara. And it was perfectly unharmed. And that's where the idea of this curse really comes from. And it has not been worn since. It's sat in a vault and nobody wants to go near it.
Don't keep that thing locked up forever.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. Oh my God. I got chills. That's crazy. Like you said there before, there are some other cursed items of in the royal family. What are some other things? That's so interesting to me.
So there is a very controversial royal diamond called the Kohinoor diamond, which was given to Queen Victoria after the British took control of India or various territories in India. And it was taken from the Maharaja Dalip Singh, who was the ruler of this territory that was taken. And the Kohinoor diamond had been in his family for generations and generations and generations. It was the most important royal jewel in their history. But it was sort of surrounded by this terrible history of bloodshed and wars. And because it sort of represented the power of the Maharaja, there was lots of wars that it was entangled up in. So anyway, this jewel was taken and it was given to Queen Victoria, and she absolutely loved it. And she had it turned into a brooch. But when she learnt about the history of this gem, and she realised the sort of suffering that had come with it, she came to the conclusion that this stone must be cursed. But it was only cursed, and it would only curse the wearer if the wearer was a man. So she decided that no men in the family would be allowed to wear this stone, just to make sure nothing bad happened to them. But she loved it so much that she had it added to the royal collection and made into an official crown jewel. And after her death, it was put into the Queen Consort's crown. And so it has been worn, well, up until very recently, by all Queen Consorts in their crown on their coronation day. No men have gone near it since. But at the coronation of Charles and Camilla, the space where the Kohinoor diamond was supposed to sit in the crown was replaced by a brooch that had belonged to the late Queen Elizabeth. So maybe they were just hoping to keep, any trace of that curse as far away from them as possible, just to be safe.
I love the story of the cursed tiara.
Yes, this is so much fun. I love these spooky stories. You and I both got chills.
I did. I sat goosebumps on my arms. All right. Well, definitely check out her book, The Royal Wardrobe, and check her out on TikTok as well. All right. Before we wrap up, let's get into our royal history moment of the week. And the crown jewels are shining on King Charles's coronation, and they're the centerpiece of a new exhibition. So just 20 days after the crowning ceremony at Westminster Abbey, they're going to be on display at the Tower of London. So this tells the story behind the jewels like never before. So the new exhibit, which opened last week, shows off not only Charles's set of coronation crowns alongside regalia like the scepter and orb, but also Queen Camilla's refashioned Queen Mary's crown. The headpiece was modified from when Charles's great-grandmother, Queen Mary, wore it as a consort to the coronation of her husband, King George. So it was reset with all these diamonds. So very cool. If you're around, make sure you check it out. But it's always great to see these things
Rosie
up close.
Just told us why it was reset, because of that diamond.
Right. Yes. Now I wonder, we should have asked her where that diamond is now, like where to go.
Like in a vault that we're not meant to open,
Totally. So now you know a little bit of story behind it before you go in.
Yeah, this sounds like a great exhibit.
It really does. All right. Well, that is it for this week's episode of Royally Us. Keep commenting, keep subscribing, and Christine and I will see you next week. For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.